So what's the downside of session hijacking? What does it mean when the attack is successful? What's the impact? Well, there's a few different things, and clearly one of them is that the victim is now impersonated by the attacker. Now, the impact of that is really going to depend on what can a user authenticated to a system actually do. Now, that might mean everything from, say, leaving comments on a blog post through to actually transferring money between accounts. Clearly, the impact is very different between those two, and it all comes down to what is the system intended to do. What would it mean if the system actually thought the attacker was a legitimate user? Because this is the risk of session hijacking, that the attacker effectively impersonates their target. So what that means to the vulnerable system very much comes down to what that system is intended to do. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, what can a legitimate user do on a system? So let me give you an example of that. What can you do while you're logged into Facebook? What could someone logged into Facebook as you do? Look at your photos. Look at your friends' photos. Communicate with your friends as though they were you. And Facebook is a really good example because we've seen session hijacking attacks against them in the past. Let me give you a really good example of that. This is Firesheep, and Firesheep was really big news when it launched back in 2010. It was a browser plugin for Firefox, and what it meant was that an attacker could sit on a network where other people were authenticated to Facebook, sniff their tokens, and then hijack their session. And one of the big things about Firesheep was that it was just so user-friendly. If I jump down to the end of this post, we can see an image here of Firesheep running in Firefox. And in fact, what you're seeing here is 4 different people on the same network as the attacker who's running this, who are presently authenticated to Facebook. In the example here, someone has clicked on Ian Gallagher, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, we're now seeing the attacker logged in as Ian Gallagher. So Facebook actually thinks that the attacker is Ian. And now we can see part of Ian's newsfeed, and inevitably the attacker can do anything that Ian could do. The attacker can see anything that Ian could see. The attacker has effectively become Ian. This was a really serious attack, and Facebook have now well and truly mitigated this risk. And throughout this course, one of the things we're going to talk about is how this attack actually happened and what you need to do to stop it from happening in your apps as well. So this is a great industry precedent that demonstrates just how serious a session hijacking attack can be. So now that we've established that, I want to move on, and the last thing that I want to look at in this module is just where session hijacking sits in terms of the broader spectrum of risks on the web, because it turns out that it does remain a very, very serious problem.